Because we are a monetary union without a fiscal union, we have to set up rules and follow them. If the EU member states followed the rules, then it would work out. Those member states that followed the rules in the past have been the most successful in the last years. So our problem is not a lack of rules, but a lack of implementation of these rules. To improve implementation, the monetary union could develop the European Stability Mechanism towards a European Monetary Fund. We could let it identify risks in the member states at an early stage, survey and manage in dialogue with the concerning member states and government, realizing risks. We could set up a clear rules how creditors have to participate in upcoming debt restructuring processes. In the end, the monetary union is somehow a core Europe. We have to defend it strongly, because it even this far integrated core Europe does not work, then we will have bigger difficulties to defend Europe's integration as a whole. Demography and youth unemployment. I can just touch on two more important issues for the EU in the face of the dramatic developments on the world stage that I mentioned before. These issues have been eclipsed, but that doesn't mean that they are less pressing. At first hand, they seem to be contradictory, but still they exist alongside each other. The development of our European demography on one hand, with many old people to maintain already now, and even more in the future, respectively to less children and younger people, and the huge number of unemployed young people on the other hand, who barely see a future for themselves that allows them to keep the living standards that their parents have achieved. Let me present some figures to you that will illustrate this situation. Europe is the only region in the world that will undergo a decrease in population within the next decades. In 1950, 26% of the European population was 15 years old or younger. 2010, only 15% were 15 or younger. On the other end of the scale, we had 8% of people older than 65 in 1950, compared to 16% in 2010 and approximately 27% in 2050. In the EU in 2050, the share in population in its working age will be 57%. Imagine that nearly every working citizen will have to support financially himself and one other person. Germany is highly affected by this progress. In 20 years, every third German citizen will be over 60 years old. The demographic change has two components: low fertility rates and a steadily increasing life expectancy. It is obvious that this will have a deep impact on our existing system of pensions and healthcare. Will our standard of living sink? Will our children be able to pursue happiness as my generation could do? Having this in mind, the demographic progress is normally seen as an overwhelming social problem. But this is not only the way it can be seen. First of all, we won't only have longer lives, but also longer healthy lives. This is a gift and one of the biggest achievements of modern civilization. The times of illness and disease will have a smaller share in our overall lifetime. That's great. But to make it economically feasible, things have to change fundamentally. Keywords are lifelong learning, a flexible retirement age, and a rethinking of how work time should be distributed over the life cycle and over men and women. There are already good role models to look at, for example in Denmark, that has implemented broad reforms already. On the other hand, to increase the fertility rate Access to childcare must be broader, times off from work must be easier to get and to become financial feasible to a broader public. Germany has already made a huge development in this topic. Parents do not only get roughly 280 New Zealand dollars monthly per child, the so-called Kindergeld, and reductions on taxes, but also since 2007, a governmental financial substitute between 65 to 100% of their missing wages when they temporarily got out of work for parental leave. Since 2013, parents are entitled to get partly subsidized childcare from the baby's age to 12 months. These measures seem to have an impact on German fertility rate. Since 2012, the absolute fertility rate has constantly been increasing. The latest data is from 2015. By then, the fertility rate has achieved the highest level since 35 years. Furthermore, as an interesting note, women with migration background contribute slightly more to the German fertility rate. Despite the fact that more elderly people retire from work than younger people enter into the workforce, Europe faces a serious youth unemployment problem in several regions. Following the financial and debt crisis, youth unemployment sharply increased in the EU member states, except Germany. Nevertheless, youth unemployment is not a recent phenomenon that can be ascribed only to the Great Recession. Most European countries have faced difficulties in integrating youth in the labor market for many years, and youth unemployment rates are generally higher than adult unemployment rates. Nevertheless, it is alarming that high rates of young people are disconnected from the labor market, as they are neither in education, employment, or training. In Italy, the proportion of such disconnected youth has ranged between 15 to 20% since 2000, and Greece and Spain have even surpassed Italy. In 2014, every second young Spanish and Italian was unemployed. The numbers decrease, but only slowly. Another alarming feature is that some countries, especially in Southern Europe, a huge proportion of young workers are employed only on temporary contracts that are not related to apprenticeship and require very long periods to make a transition into permanent positions. There is not one common reason for high young unemployment rates in all affected countries. Several structural factors play an important role. Severe deficits in the education and training systems can lead to low qualified youth. They are the most at risk to face unemployment. Skilled youth then must meet the demands of the labor market, which not always is the case. Then, structurally, the costs associated with the dismissal of permanent workers can be constrained on job creation. If the legal setting makes dismissal for economic reasons too burdensome, firms will increase the use of either temporary contracts or service provision contracts. What to do? Structural reforms aimed at improving global competitiveness and the dynamics of job creation are fundamental. Then, working against skill mismatch requires modernizing education and training systems. As a short-term measures, youth could, and already does, use the benefits of the unified European labor market. When the jobs are elsewhere moving, there seems to be a solution. Many young people from Spain or Italy or Greek people work, for example, in Germany.